Can you hear me, Kenny? Can you hear me, Kenny?
Commercial real estate. I'll come up and just make sure that everything's centered because the mouth is a little weird. Yeah, I know. Oh yeah, you remember? Yeah, it's very jumpy, so you just gotta slowly touch the wheel. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, David. Yeah, my daughter was. Oh, I think he should be here anyway. Okay. I don't. Would you wait for him? You don't wait for him? Okay. Otherwise, oh yeah. Okay. Because you guys are pretty quick on the agenda, so yeah, we can shuffle stuff around if you want. No, I think. Okay. Very easy. Very easy. Thank you. No, I'm in this whole day. Oh, so the board meeting. They set the January meeting. And then, yeah. So that'll be the same thing. It has to come to your planning director first, and then planning director. And then they have to. Public hearing. So leave your sign up. We'll come take it down. Right. Yeah, and like I said, the if anything, no. Okay. You got music over there? She's coming. I can just switch the name tag.
Y'all coming to the meeting out there? Sherry? Dr. Schmidt? Sherry? You coming to the meeting? Sherry?
The next hockey day.
Come on, we need Rodney too.
Chop, chop. Guess I'll wait for Sherry.
I left all my Christmas masks on my desk. We just had our office Christmas party. Don't wear a mask, oh no.
Yeah, I don't have a Christmas mask.
I'd like to bring the meeting, the Planning Commission regular meeting of December 21st, 2020 to order. Sherry, can you call?
Yes, Ms. Chairwoman. Mr. Bennett?
Here.
Mr. Tiller? Ms. Butler? Mr. Moyer?
Here.
Ms. Thomas? Mr. LaRochelle?
Here.
Dr. Schmidt?
Here.
Ms. Townsend?
Here.
Mr. Davis?
Here.
Ms. Rose?
Here.
Ms. Pearson?
Here.
Thank you. And I'd just like to remind all the commissioners to please turn your mics off and on when you're finished speaking. Thank you.
I forgot the moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance, so we will have a moment of silence now. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes of the November 16th meeting? And if you have, do you have any corrections or comments? Okay, Laura. Go ahead.
On page 5, the second paragraph, it should read, he recommended a total, not totaled, of $3,075,000, and then the last part of that sentence, and not taxpayer revenue, as opposed to no. And then, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The sixth paragraph that starts with Mr. Hathaway says, but he was, it should be pleased to say they were producing numbers. I can't comment on content since
I think the
since I
no
wasn't
could be
here.
no or not taxpayer revenue. It could probably go either way.
Yeah.
Anyone else? If not, do I have a motion?
Ms. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented with the corrections suggested.
Thank you, Ms. Townsend. Sherry, can you pull the numbers?
Yes, to approve the November 16th, 2020 minutes with the corrections noted by Ms. Rose. How say you, Mr. LaRochelle?
Abstain.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Moyer?
Abstain.
Ms. Townsend? Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Dr. Schmidt? Aye. Ms. Rose?
Abstain.
Ms. Pearson?
Aye. Thank you, Sherry. Next, we have the citizens' comment period. Do we have anybody signed up for that? No? Okay. All right, next we have a presentation. There's a representative from Energix Corp, or Energix Group and AES to present on a solar project.
Yeah, good. Oh, good. Where's the,
Mouse is here.
Yeah.
And it's very touchy, so you just need to roll it very gently to get it.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay.
We'll work on fine tuning it here.
Yeah.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman and members of the Commission. Appreciate the opportunity to briefly present on our proposed solar project in New Kent. My name is David Richards. I'm Director of Project Development at Energix, and I'm joined by my colleague, Dominika Sink, who will be presenting more on the details of the project. I just wanted to give a brief overview, a little bit of an introduction about the company, and tell you a little bit about recent legislation this last year, the Virginia Clean Economy Act, and as it applies to solar projects throughout the Commonwealth. So Energix is an Israeli publicly traded company. We are the U.S. subsidiary headquartered in Arlington, Virginia. We focus in the U.S. entirely on solar projects, in Israel and Poland on wind and solar. What distinguishes us a little bit from many of our competitors is that we not only develop and build the projects, but we also own them for the long term. So I think it's really kind of brings us how we approach a project that really flavors how we approach it, because we know that we are not going to be selling the project. It's one that we're going to own for the full life of the project, and it really flavors how we approach working with the communities where the projects are sited, with the county governments, and I think it makes us a better partner. We have our first 3 projects in Virginia were completed earlier this year, approximately 82 megawatts of projects throughout the Commonwealth, and an additional 144 megawatts of projects that have either started construction in the last couple months or will start construction in the first quarter of 2021. So we have a strong experience actually building these projects, and that complements kind of our international experience in Israel and Poland. We use really tier 1 equipment, and I think that's another result of being the long-term owners of the project, is that we really care what goes in, how it looks, and how it's going to perform for the long term. Very quick. Kind of hit on this a bit, but came to the U.S. After discussions with the state and have found great support in the Commonwealth to bring investment to the state. Very delicately scroll this. This is just a little sampling of the projects that we have either built, under construction, or in our pipeline. So yeah, you can see really spread across the state, and really looking forward to this project in New Kent. Delicately here. And just very briefly about the Virginia Clean Economy Act. This was really a transformative piece of legislation that set out a standard for Dominion and APCO in the state in terms of new generation that needed to be brought online really in increments, but in particular by 2045. So in the next few years, Dominion's required to bring on 3,000 megawatts, and that's onshore wind or solar, and then an additional 16,000 megawatts by 2035. To put that into perspective, the project that we're proposing is a 20 megawatt project. So a lot of projects are going to need to go in across the state, and the mandate's really there. But also in this session, the legislature provided for some additional incentive on the county level, recognizing that these projects would be built across the Commonwealth, and wanting to make sure that there would be sufficient tax revenue to support the projects and encourage the development across the state. And there's really 2 mechanisms that this was completed in. One, and I guess right now, by doing nothing, the county will be receiving increased revenue from the machinery and tools tax, the M&T tax. And previously, projects that were built were eligible for an 80% exemption for the life of the project. And the legislation changed that, and it kept the 80% exemption for the first 5 years, stepping down to 70% for the next 5 years, and then a 60% exemption for the remainder of the project life. So that's one revenue stream. That's kind of the don't do anything that's already in force. The other option is to enact an ordinance that would provide for a what the legislation calls a revenue share. This is up to $1,400 per megawatt. Again, perspective, this project would be a 20 megawatt project. So those are the two options for increased revenue to the county. Of course, the other one is, and which is under either, would be some increased property tax from a reassessment of the land. So the revenue share, just a little short of $1 million over the project life. The calculations for the M&T tax is a little stronger, 1.5 million over the life of the project. Looking at the number, I'd say, well, I kind of prefer the revenue share, but I certainly understand that the number on the M&T is a little bit higher. Really, the revenue share is maybe a little simpler in that it's known exactly what it's going to be every year going forward, whereas the M&T, there's some calculations that go into that. And I'll pause there. Happy to answer any questions that you have, but if not now, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Dominica.
Project lifespan, is it 20 years?
35. Think of as a 35-year project. The panels produced for a long time, and 35-year lifespan.
I have a question. The property here, do you own the property or are you leasing the property?
We'll lease the property. We have an option to lease, and we would lease the property for the entirety of the lifetime of the project.
Okay, the other question I have is on the equipment tax. What equipment and tools are you being taxed on? Are you being taxed on the mirrors?
Yeah, we are. So we're being taxed on really everything that goes out there to the site. So the modules, those are the most valuable of the project assets, and then there's some ancillary equipment like inverters that converts the electricity. But yes, everything that goes out there is part of that base for the M&T tax.
So when you were talking about the revenue share, are you talking about revenue share or tool tax?
Correct. It's an either or. So the board does nothing. The M&T tax is already in force and is applicable. If the board opts to choose a revenue share and put that into a zoning ordinance, that would be in place of the M&T tax.
Would you still be exempted from that, though? Because you're already here at the board and we don't have that ordinance yet?
No, at this point, we're certainly, we haven't put in our application formally. We're certainly open to, working under either scenario, and would be happy to coordinate that if the board sees fit to enact an ordinance. We hope they do so quickly, but then that we could submit our application.
I'm sure
following that.
Our board members would like to do their homework and see which ones is the greater and which ones would benefit New Kent County.
Absolutely, and we're happy to, for example, we've commissioned an economic analysis that goes into a little bit more detail than I would tonight, but we're happy to provide that as well. That might help to form the basis for the board discussion around which one would be preferable.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question as well. I'm sorry. Do you have a sense on how the solar farms impact the local assessments or the property values over time?
Yeah, we've generally seen, so our property value would generally be reassessed at a higher rate. Certainly happy to share kind of what we've seen across the state, but we generally see it to be a fairly substantial increase in the assessment. I've seen in the neighborhood of $10,000 an acre, $12,000 an acre. So there's a significant reassessment of those base rates.
And I have one question more in a general sense. If you're going to be the owner operator of your projects, the lifespan of the panels, is it the full 35 years or are they replaced?
No, generally the economics are such that we anticipate the panels to last the entire time. There's a fixed degradation, yearly that's modeled and expected. The other major component is the inverter. Those would generally be replaced, I'd say, in the 10 to 15 year range. So, it could be that it's replaced twice. All things go well, it could be that it's replaced once, but that's really the replacement part, not the modules themselves.
And when the project is shut down and these modules, what happens to them?
Yeah.
Are they going in a hole someplace? I mean, this is just a general.
No. It's a great question, and the industry's probably had a little bit of a slow start to it, just because looking out 35 years, but the industry's really caught up that these are recycled. So we work with First Solar, which is headquartered in the United States, and they have a very robust program that essentially comes with us buying the panels, that they will then recycle that material and dispose of it properly. So to kind of piggyback on that's the general, what happens generally to the panels that are recycled. I think probably the more specific here is that we are responsible for decommissioning the system and really restoring the property to its pre-project condition. So that involves us digging down and removing everything that's there, and that's accomplished really by presenting a decommissioning bond to the county and to our landowner, where if for whatever reason we're not around or couldn't do it, we would have a surety in place to decommission that project, so that there's really no risk to the landowner or the county that just gets abandoned and left behind.
I have a question. The property, when you're doing the solar, I take it that you're selling the energy that you're gathering to who?
Yeah, so we generally sell the energy that we're gathering to Dominion. So we'll connect. We will definitely connect to their distribution network, to their system. There are other avenues to sell power, but we have generally sold it to Dominion. So what happens is that power is produced on our site, it's connected to Dominion system, and then it's dispersed on the grid to kind of everyone and anyone who's using that Dominion system. So and we get paid for the power that we present to Dominion.
So I guess my question would be is that your next door neighbor would say, what benefit is it to them for you being your neighbor? In all reality, they don't get necessarily directly because of the project cheaper power. It's not like we strike deals with kind of everyone around there for the power. This just goes to Dominion. Now I will say that renewables is good for the grid, which means it's good for the ratepayer. Which means it is good for the neighbor, but it's not a one-for-one where I can say, hey, this power is going to you and you'll pay less. It just all goes onto the Dominion system and kind of benefits everyone that way. And one other question. During the Hurricane Isabel, we lost electricity here for probably about 11 days. Do you have some type of backup system that you could generate electricity, or say, for instance, we needed to have bathhouses brought in here, and we needed places to put a tent and actually have some food processed or whatever to be out servicing the people.
will you be able to assist in a situation such as that?
No, unfortunately, we are connected to the Dominion grid. So if the Dominion grid is down, we are also down. Now, how these usually work is that we might be connected to more than one point on the Dominion grid. So, for example, one substation could go down, but we may be connected through kind of their redundancies to multiple substations. So if the other one is available, we will continue to produce power, and that can continue to be used by Dominion, but it's not such that we can redirect that to a specific emergency need. Rather, it provides some additional redundancy and support to the Dominion grid, but it's not, in that instance, it's not us that we can redirect it to those needs.
Thank you.
Mr. Richards, I have a couple questions for you. With the myriad of sites that you have in Virginia planned and currently online, are all of those standalone sites, i.e. that's the only use on those individual sites is the generation of solar energy?
As opposed to?
Co-use, for instance, maybe a manufacturing facility where the solar panels are on the rooftops and you're leasing rooftop space for the generation of electricity.
Ours are specifically all on-the-ground, single-use facilities.
Okay, what improvements are necessary beside the improvements on that particular land in order to get the power to the customer?
So we work with Dominion to interconnect to their system, and basically all the costs that are incurred to it could be that we have to provide some substation upgrades that they deem necessary in order to take that power. We're responsible for those. It could be reconductoring lines and circuits where it's not high enough voltage, where we're then responsible for that. So all of those costs are generally fairly invisible in that they're happening at the Dominion substation, maybe happening along the line. Those costs are borne by the project.
How many sites in New Kent are you looking at currently? I don't need to know the particulars of the individual sites, but is there more than one?
This is the only project that we have under option, or I'd say I don't think I have any advanced discussions with any other landowners beyond this one.
The use of battery technology has been a real forefront in solar energy production, storing electrical power for cloudy days, per se, or inclement weather days. Is there a plan to use battery technology at the site?
For this project, no. You're absolutely right. There is a lot of activity around battery storage. You will certainly see more projects that have a battery storage component. And the market, I would say, is fairly young in Virginia for that right now. But you will be seeing more. This project is not one of them.
Will the project be scaled as in a phase one in which only like 50% of the panels are installed initially and then augmented, or is it to go install as many panels as you can right now on the site as it would allow?
Single phase, we'll go in. We're proposing the project that we'll build and really only getting approvals for that specific project. So it's not been contemplated to have any kind of phase development. It's this one project that we're planning to build.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. I was going to ask about the battery storage, but you already answered that one. What generally are you projecting for the capacity factor for the facility?
This would be a 20 megawatt AC project.
No, I mean the usage throughout the year, the capacity factor. 25% of the time?
I don't know if I'm following the like how much of I'm not sure I'm following the question. So like how much of the power that could be produced would be being produced at any given time?
I'm talking about how many hours in the year would you be producing 20 megawatts?
Okay. Great technical question that I don't have the answer.
I work for a power company.
Yeah. Great technical question. Yeah, I don't have the answer, Dominica. I don't think.
I'm assuming that would be in the economic evaluation.
It won't be because really the economics evaluation is simply about the AC nameplate capacity. So it would be a 20 megawatt project. That's what the economics, the revenue share would be based on, not what we're producing at any given time. So it's
but the revenue share, in order to calculate an annual revenue share amount, you have to have a projected capacity factor for the facility.
No. The revenue share it's not a per megawatt hour or anything like that. It's simply the nameplate AC capacity. So here we know that will be a 20 megawatt project.
Okay.
So it's 20 times the, call it $1,400. That's the revenue share. It's a little bit misnamed. You would think it would be, how much are you actually, how many megawatt hours are you delivering to the grid? It's simpler than that. I think for the reason that people probably don't want to calculate to that level of detail, but.
Yeah. Okay.
Gary, did you have a question?
I have one more question
Please.
for you. And so the sun's up; those solar panels are producing DC energy, correct?
Correct.
Should there be a brush fire? Should there be something that requires first responders? You cannot turn that off, correct? You ground the panels. Is there some way to make it safe for first responders, or is that DC power always there if the sun is up? Are those panels always producing?
Yeah, so they're producing. There are disconnects and lots of training for first responders to be able to know what they can do and what they cannot do on site, and where they can disconnect that power. And we're under a lot of regulation in that space from the utility, but also from a safety perspective to provide that information.
One more question too, Mr. Richards. The site is 472 acres, and you're only going to use 200. And similar to what Mr. Bennett asked, so there's no intention of having additional phase or expanding. Is 200 acres all you need?
Correct.
And,
yes.
Is the other what's going to be the use of the rest of the acreage? Just you're only leasing the 200 acres?
Yeah, we'll lease that portion of the property from the landowner. So we wouldn't be involved in anything else that would go on that.
So technically, the parcel could still be used as a. I mean, it's obviously probably A1 zone. I'm sure we haven't seen that. Industrial. Okay.
Correct. So our use wouldn't limit or restrict additional development on that site, and would really be limited to what we'll apply for in the CUP. We won't apply for more than that.
Okay.
But my colleague Dominica will kind of go into a little bit more detail if that's okay on the
I have
specific
one more question.
project.
You obviously have a lot of these throughout the state. What do you do for visibility as far as so that it's not seen from the roads? And
Yeah, I would say the first thing we do is we try to find sites that are fairly easily hidden or are naturally hidden, and this is a great site for that reason. There's good tree cover really throughout the site. There are certain areas that are probably lighter than others, in which case we will put in that buffering, that tree buffering to kind of fill it in. But my preference as I'm looking at land is always to find a site that looks like this, that's already fairly well hidden, doesn't have a lot of site issues from neighbors. No site's perfect, but I'd rather build this one than one kind of on a hill. That's a little harder. But this is what we're looking for, and we'll certainly fill in and ensure that view shed's really as protected as it can be.
Thank you. So my name is Dominica Sink. I'm with Energix. I'm the project manager on this project. And we've had a few spoilers here because David covered a few things that I'm going to be talking about. So let me just introduce you to the project on the higher level. So that is correct. All the acreage that is available there is over 450 acres, but we're going to only build approximately 150 acres. So the application will be for that amount. We're still in the process of getting certain environmental studies. That's why we're not narrowing that down just yet. So the parcel is zoned for industrial use. There are 2 parcels there. Initially, our application was considering 3 parcels, but the parcel that we dropped right now was to the south. It was adjacent to the historic Olivet Church. So we decided to drop that from our application, considering the potential impacts to the viewshed. All the adjoining properties are zoned industrial or economic use. So we thought this would be a really good fit for the area because it's relatively low density for residential, and that sometimes comes up as a problem from the community. Project itself will not use water, any services from the county. It will not burden the county in any way. The traffic during construction will be below 200 vehicle trips a day. And after construction, it will be sporadic. We will have our teams do O&M, so operation and maintenance. So we'll have crews mowing vegetation. We'll have preventative maintenance. We'll have our technicians on site a few times a year, but there's not much other activity that will be going on the project site. And in the meantime, while the power is being produced, it will provide the local grid with non-emitting renewable energy resources. Trying to be very delicate with this. Here are a few photos from the area. So the northern boundary of the project, that's where we have Road 64. There's already quite a lot of vegetation growing there. So our plan is to keep as much of that vegetation as possible and supplement in certain areas where that would be needed. On the west side, entire boundary of the project is a wetland. So we're not going to impact that at all. We're going to keep 100-foot setback from the wetland, and that will remain vegetated. The only real impact might be on the eastern side. There's a landfill there and few residential parcels. So we drove by, and the photos that you see here are taken from the parts where the residential parcels are located. So this is where we would propose more significant buffering so that there will be no impact to the properties.
I know it's touchy, but it shows the whole parcel. Oh, sorry. There you go.
Okay.
You might want to.
Yeah. So here we have the wetland boundary that will not be impacted. Here we have the northern boundary here, and all around the project, we're going to maintain 100-foot offset to even further make sure that there are no impacts from the roads. And this is where we have the historic church. Initially, this was part of our application, but we dropped it, and right now there's more than 1,800 feet of distance between the church and where the array would be located. So our primary access route right now for construction would be along Olivet Church Road. There are quite a few side entrances there, so we're flexible on where that would be exactly. And as we spoke about visual impacts, we're going to have the setback around the perimeter. We're going to have a substantial setback from the church. And where needed, we're going to supplement the existing vegetation with additional buffering. As far as natural resources, we have a wetland delineation and recently received jurisdictional determination from Army Corps of Engineers So we're not going to impact the wetlands that are currently delineated. We're going to maintain the 100-foot setback for the resource protection areas around the wetlands. We performed threatened and endangered species review. There are 2 potential species. They're not identified on the site. The habitat was considered potentially accurate for the species. So again, in order to avoid that, we're going to stay in the northern part of the parcel because the species identified were along the southern border of the parcel. And a little bit about additional permitting. Usually the first step in Virginia is to engage the county and go through the local permitting. That is a prerequisite for the state level permitting for solar, which is administered by DEQ. The process is called PBR, that's permit by rule. During that process, we have to do more studies, reviews of archaeological, historical resources, databases for different species of birds, different resources that might be on the site or within the site to ensure that there is no impact to those resources. DEQ then coordinates review with Department of Historic Resources, Wildlife Resources, Department of Conservation and Recreation. And if there are any impacts, then the agency would require us to have avoidance or provide mitigation strategies so there will be no impacts to any resources. After PBR is concluded, then we go back to the county and work on the land disturbance, stormwater permit, erosion sediment control, building and electrical permits. So after the CUP, we're going to go back to DEQ, and then we'll be back here trying to get additional permits. And as my colleague mentioned, after the permitting and construction, we will be the long-term owner of the project. So we will be doing the monitoring and the operation and maintenance services for the project. And here we have just a high-level timeline. So right now we're going through local permitting. We're hoping this process will conclude by the second half of next year. Then we're going to start our permit by rule. After that is finished, we're going to move to pre-construction permitting, so working on our design with the county. After that, we're planning on starting construction 3rd or 4th quarter of next year. That's going to usually take about 6 to 9 months. And after that, we'll be ready to start operation of the project. And at the end of the project, we're going to decommission the project, as has been discussed before. So a little bit about the benefits to the county. During construction, there's going to be increased hiring. We try to hire as much local labor as we can. We're usually very successful with hiring subcontractors that provide ancillary services. If we're not able to hire local labor, then we will bring that expertise from elsewhere, but we will place the staff in hotels, so they'll contribute to the local base by hotels and dining locally. We're anticipating for this project we'll have approximately 74 jobs that will generate over $3 million in labor income and over $9 million in economic output. And for the operational phase, there's very little maintenance needed for the project, so they'll be equivalent to 1 job, $30,000 in associated labor income, and $70,000 in economic output. And so, again, as mentioned, additional revenues to the county. Right now, the property is generating income from real estate taxes. So just by comparison, we're looking at 35 years for the project. If the property stayed in its current use, it would generate $234,000 in income to the county. before the Virginia Clean Economy Act, before the taxation was improved, the project would have benefited 1.1 million. And right now, if we're looking between the improved MNT tax or the revenue share, total with the real estate taxes over project lifetime, that will be either 1.7 million or 1.2 million, depending on what taxation is chosen by the county. So just a little bit about additional development prospects for the county. There's an increasing interest from larger companies to pursue renewable energy. So siting is often driven by access to renewable energy resources. So these companies like to site their data centers or warehouses nearby renewable resources. And as an example, according to the data from Virginia Economic Development Partnership, data centers are a key component of regional economic development. And so since 2016, for example, 3 counties benefited from such siting. Those were Henrico County, Loudoun County, and Prince William County. And the last topic that we'd like to talk about is the zoning for this particular property. We know from previous conversations with the county, there's some concern about industrial parcel being used for energy generation. So we try to take a deeper dive into what is the current use of the industrial parcels in the county. So as of today, there's 3,500 acres zoned for industrial use in the county, and 760 acres are currently utilized. So that's almost 80% that is not being utilized for any use. The proposed project is going to stay below 200 acres, and as such, that will be 5.6% of all the available industrial land in the county. So we also try to look forward, since the project will be here for 35 years, what kind of growth for the industrial activity could the county see? So we took the most aggressive expansion that happened in the past. That was between 2001 and 2010. There were 115 acres developed for industrial use. So if we go into the future throughout the project lifetime, assuming that every decade that pace of industrial development increases by 30%, then we would arrive at 700 acres. So that would be just a quarter of the land available right now for industrial use that will be utilized. So it really, you know, for us, it seems like the question is really not, you know, is it this or is it that? Because it could be both. There's definitely enough land in the county to support both solar development and industrial development. And this project would be a good way for the county to keep the land, preserve it for future use, while getting benefits that could be invested in infrastructure to make the county even more attractive for future industrial development. And with that, I'm just going to stop and see if there are any other questions.
Ms. Chairman, I have a question. This would probably either be for Kelly or Mr. Hathaway. On our towers for our cell phones, we had required some surety bonds to be put up. Will this be required to have some kind of bond saying that if they were to bankrupt like 20 years into the project, are we going to have somebody be able to clean this up if they fold it?
Yes.
So there would be a surety bond put up? Okay.
Can you tell me now on Olivet Church Road, is that single phase, the circuit that's there now? Is this a single-phase circuit, and you would have to build it out to a three-phase circuit all the way to the substation, is that correct?
I think it is a three-phase circuit.
There is a three-phase
I
circuit?
think so. It just needs to be reconductored.
And is that circuit coming out of, is it Elko substation or Providence Forge?
It's Providence Forge.
Any other questions, commissioners? Anyone? Thank you for your time.
Okay,
and
thank
your
you.
presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Okay, we'll move along. Any unfinished business? No? Okay. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Bennett for public hearings.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we have before us 5 public hearings. Each have been properly advertised for tonight's consideration. If I may take a moment to review the procedures that will be used for tonight's hearings. Number 1, each public hearing will be considered separately. Secondly, the staff will give a brief overview of the hearing that is before us. The sponsor of each case will be given an opportunity to make a presentation, and the commissioners will be given an opportunity to ask questions of the sponsors or the staff for clarification purposes. I will then open the citizens' comment portion of the public hearing and receive your comments and opinions. Please, the sign-up sheets for you to be able to speak are located at the desk next to the front door of this building. When I call your name from the list, I ask you to come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, address your comments to the commission. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and when the timer or when I've indicated so, please conclude your remarks in 1 or 2 sentences. If you're representing a group, you'll be limited to 7 minutes. Please note that the commission members will not answer your questions directly during the citizen comment period, but will certainly take those questions and comments into consideration during the deliberation period for the public hearing. With that, I will now open our first public hearing for the consideration of application CUP-03-20, a dog training and boarding facility as a home occupation. Ms. Ledoux.
All right, thank you, Mark. Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to give a brief overview of Mr. Kelly's application. Mr. Nathan Kelly, who's here with us tonight, has requested a conditional use permit to train and board canines that do not belong to him on his property, which is located at 4100 Liberty Hall Place in Quinton. The property is zoned A1 agricultural and consists of 6.71 acres. Section 98-16C of the zoning ordinance allows the Board of Supervisors to authorize by conditional use permit the enlargement or expansion or intensification or operation of home occupations beyond the limits otherwise specified in the ordinance. This is one of those cases. A use of this type is allowed in the A1 zoning district with a conditional use permit, which is why we're here tonight. The applicant has no intention of working with more than 3 dogs at any one time, and that's also proposed as a condition of the permit. The standards for review of conditional use permits are set forth in Section 98-744 of the County Code and are listed in your staff memo. Staff received no comments from any of the reviewing agencies. There are 6 suggested conditions listed in Resolution PC-09-20. These conditions will assist in addressing, protecting, and promoting health, safety, and the general welfare of New Kent County citizens. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit with these conditions, and I'll introduce Mr. Kelly if he would like to give a presentation. Surprise.
Good evening. Nathan Kelly, 4100 Liberty Hall Place is my address. And like she just stated, I'm nothing nearly as exciting as the solar energy we just learned about. So I'm merely just requesting a permit to train a dog that does not belong to me at my home. I'm new to New Kent. I moved here in April, and when I lived in Henrico County, their policy is actually the exact same. They did the same thing there. To train a dog that does not belong to you, you have to have a permit to do so. And there I actually lived on a quarter-acre lot in a neighborhood, and the neighbors didn't even know I trained dogs. So everything's done indoors. There's no building being proposed, no structure being built, no excessive noise, nothing changing at my house other than how it looks exactly right now. But reviewing the ordinance, when I moved here, I saw that it read essentially the same as the previous county I lived in. So that is what I'm suggesting here. Pretty boring, but any questions you may have, feel free. I'm a full-time job as I'm a police officer with Henrico County. I run the K-9 unit there, and I'm responsible for training all the police dogs, not only with them, but all the surrounding jurisdictions, Richmond City, Louisa, Hanover, you name it, they all come through me. New Kent doesn't have any dogs currently, but I give the sheriff my free services whenever he calls me. So I've been doing training dogs from cancer detection to obedience to apprehension for almost 30 years. That's what I do for every day. What I'm proposing here is basic obedience for house pets. No aggressive dogs here. I'm talking my poodle won't get off my couch kind of a thing, okay? So there is no danger of a neighbor being bit or a dog barking because that's why they bring the dog to me, is for obedience. So with that, that's really all I have, unfortunately. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Ms. Chairman, did you say that you would only have 3 dogs?
Yeah, not even that, probably. Now that's like retirement goal, because right now I work 40 hours a week still. So this is really a side job, training dogs in free time. So more than likely, there'll probably only be 1 dog, to tell you the truth.
Okay. Because boarding animals right now is a big need in New Kent County.
Yes, ma'am.
So you probably will have a lot of people calling you to board their dogs.
Yes. Right. And I agree. And I got a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old and a full-time job. So whenever I can handle that, I'll do it. And I got 3 more years with Henrico County.
So the 3 count for, like, say, for instance, if you're boarding, would you board 3 dogs and then maybe train 3 dogs? Or do the dogs just stay with you all the time, the training dogs?
They literally, if I'm training a dog, for example, if I'm not actively doing something with it, walking it on a lead, teaching it to sit, it's literally in a crate next to my bed. So yeah, it stays right where I'm at. And if I board, and I have done that in the past, boarded dogs as well, and I don't have a kennel or dog runs outside. I don't treat a dog like a number, So in the past, if I've boarded a dog, it literally lives in my house, just like my 2 labs do now. And, they lay on the floor, and I just watch them with a close eye. And they really get, the best boarding because they're not put away in a kennel. And you're right. There's a big demand for that. But you also have to be there and present to be around these dogs. And right now, I don't have the time for that quite yet until I'm officially retired in 3 years. I keep on throwing that out there because I can't get out of law enforcement fast enough these days. But before this year was awesome. But so yes, that's my long-term goal. Yes, ma'am, is to be able to board and train dogs. Multiple, 3, 4, something like that. But even that's actually asking a lot because it's time consuming.
I can understand that. So I would say as for boarding the dogs, then you're going to be somewhat selective about what dogs you take because, like I have a hunting dog that I would not sleep in my bedroom, but I would put him in the kennel.
Correct. Yes, I'm very selective in especially accepting a dog for board and training. Because what a lot of people don't realize is I can take a dog for 2 or 3 weeks and make it look like a show dog, but when I hand it back to the owner, unless they can keep up with what I did, they wasted their money. So unless I have a dedicated owner who can follow up with the rules I put forth with the dog, then I probably turn down 75% of the people who ask me to train their dogs, if I can put a number on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
I'm looking at some of the proposed conditions, and in thinking about this, normally if we were dealing with a boarding situation, we know you'd also be going through a site plan review because you would be building kennel space.
Yes, ma'am.
That's not the case, at least not right now,
No.
correct?
No. I got no plans of building any structure whatsoever currently.
Okay. But your plan in the future, after you retire, you might consider expanding.
Possibly. I can't say definitively yes. I may retire and just do nothing, quite frankly. So that's a possibility, but yeah, I'm not really honestly sure.
Well, I mean, from what you're describing, there's very little impact that anybody's going to see. But if you were to expand and want to actually build a kennel facility, we'd want to see you come back and get a renewed authorization.
Absolutely. And I've had maybe 4 or 5 people have stopped by my house because of the postage. Yeah. And they've asked that. They say, hey, what are you building? And I said, nothing. And then they say, well, why are you going through this? And I said, well, I try to lead by example in all things. So although no one would ever know I was training a dog there, it's not the way, Henrico is the exact same way. I got no problem applying for a permit whatsoever and answering questions. And if the day came that I would, obviously build a structure, obviously I would, again, reapply for that then. But there's no plans in the immediate future of any structure or kennel building being erected.
I don't have a question, but I'd like to thank you for your years of service as a police officer.
Oh, thank you very much.
Very much.
I appreciate it. This county it's night and day compared to where I work, I tell you that. I love coming home and coming seeing all the thank you responders. You don't get that in Henrico.
I don't have a question either, but my husband and I just adopted a 2.5-year-old puppy. Can I be the first to sign up?
Sure.
She's killing me.
As soon as the permit's approved. Yeah.
Any other questions from the commissioners to the applicant or the staff? I will now open the citizen comment period for this. You didn't see anybody? We will double check on that. With the shake of the head, I will now close the citizen comment period and return the floor to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Do I have one?
Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to entertain a motion.
Please do, Patty.
Okay. Talk with this thing right
I know.
In order to address, protect, and promote public convenience, necessity, general welfare, and good zoning practices in the county, I move to adopt resolution number PC-0920 to forward the application CUP 0320 to New Kent County Board of Supervisors with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Townsend. Sherry, can you hold the members?
All right. For the motion presented by Ms. Townsend, how say you? Dr. Schmidt? Aye. Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Ms. Rose?
Aye.
Mr. La Rochelle?
Aye.
Mr. Moyer?
Aye.
Ms. Townsend?
Aye.
And Ms. Pearson?
Aye.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The motion carries.
Have a good Christmas.
Madam Chair, I will continue if you so desire. Our second public hearing tonight is on the proposed capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2022. Mr. Hathaway?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. This evening, you have before you Resolution PC-10-20, a resolution to recommend capital improvement projects to the Board of Supervisors for FY22 through FY26 Capital Improvements Program. The plan that you have before you has a total project cost for FY22 of $4,084,130, of which $2,052,100 would be funded from the county's CIP cash reserves. $522,350 would be funded from proffers, and $1,509,680 would be funded by federal and state grants. The Public Utility Capital Improvement Program totals $3,075,000 for FY22. At our last meeting, I went over each individual project, so I didn't plan to do that tonight, but I can if needed. And I'll definitely be happy to answer any questions. I would like to bring to your attention one change that I would ask and that would be part of your motion for tonight's meeting. Tonight, we would need to change the Data Networking Infrastructure Campus Network Upgrades Project. And I'm sorry, that's a long name, but that is in the Information Technology section of the CIP that you have before you. And what we would like to do is not fund that project, but we would like to fund the surveillance cameras project that is also included under the Information Technologies project. We would like to fund that to the amount of $225,000, which is the same amount of the Campus Network Upgrades project. So ultimately, there will be no change to the totals of our CIP program. In further discussions with our supplier, for our surveillance camera project, we found that the warranties will be ending next fiscal year, so we'll have no more support for our camera system. So that becomes a higher priority to replace that system as opposed to our data networking and infrastructure project. At this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Hathaway, you're saying you want to change the data networking information technology.
Yes. We would like to not fund that project, which is currently proposed to be funded at a level of $225,000.
Okay, so not funded.
Right. And we would like to fund the surveillance cameras project. So we're essentially just flipping projects.
Okay, so we're just flipping we're going up a notch.
Yes. Yes.
Rodney, is
Yes.
I guess with the lack of support going forward, so the risk, the security risk is higher with the cameras as opposed to the data network?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a question or a comment, I guess. So I've noticed generally the things that are not being funded obviously are large ticket items, building projects, and I certainly understand that, and large vehicle or emergency equipment. Just as observation, but looking at a smaller dollar item, I know, and I am talking about tax dollars, but it's smaller by comparison. Mm-hmm. The 6 mechanical CPR devices in the fire department, and I know it's a 50% grant, so it's half of that, isn't it? And I'll sound from public safety, it sticks out to me a little bit.
Yes, and the reason that's not being proposed for funding, I believe they're actually on order right now. We've decided to use CARES Act funding to purchase those devices.
Thank you.
I have a question on school buses. Obviously, they're expensive, and I don't know, obviously, we're in strange times. I don't know what the usage is this year. I know some buses are running. I know we still have some bus service, but replacing 6, is that a revised number based on the fact that some buses haven't been used as much this year, or likely may not be used much next year?
Sure. You know, the schools have a bus replacement policy, and actually mileage is not part of that. It goes by the number of years of the vehicle. Their policy is to replace buses in 15-year cycles, which is also the state requirement. So those 6 are reaching their 15-year cycle.
Mr. Hathaway, too, you mentioned about the CARES Act. Is there anything else in here that's being taken care of by CARES Act that's not being proposed to be funded under CIP?
No. No, we've made a number of purchases through the CARES Act, but I don't think there's anything else on this list that, right.
Any other questions from the commissioners to Mr. Hathaway?
I think part of the CARES Act, too, is if it's not funded in the budget. So that's probably good that you're not funding it.
That's correct.
You don't want to supplant
You
the
can't,
funds.
right, you can't supplant. That's correct.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Hathaway.
Thank you.
I will now open the public hearing to receive citizens' comments. And again, with a shake of the head, I will close the public hearing and return the floor to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. There are any more questions by the commissioners or a motion?
I'll make a motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
In order to address, protect, and promote public convenience, necessity, general welfare, and good zoning practices in the county, I move to adopt resolution number PC 10-20 to forward the capital improvements program FY 2022 through FY 2026 to the New Kent County Board of Supervisors with a favorable recommendation.
Madam Chair. Yeah, with the change.
With the amendments.
With what amendment?
As presented.
Okay.
As presented.
Thank you. Is that good, Chair? Okay. Poll the members, Chair.
Yeah, so the motion on the floor by Mr. Davis is to approve the capital improvement plan as proposed by staff, with the exception of moving funding from the data networking campus project to the surveillance cameras in the same amount of $225,000. How say you, Mr. Moyer?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. LaRochelle?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Ms. Townsend?
Aye.
Ms. Rose?
Aye.
Dr. Schmidt?
Aye.
Ms. Pearson?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries with the noted change.
Back to you, Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our third public hearing tonight is on application AFD-03-20, withdrawal from the Big Swamp Agricultural Forestry District. Ms. Adams.
Yes, so application AFD 0320 under PC Resolution 1120 is a withdrawal from the Big Swamp AFD District. The applicants, Sue Ann Martin and George Dennis Hockaday, are the co-trustees of a irrevocable trust, Ann Ward Hockaday Trust. They've submitted an application to withdraw approximately 92 acres from their parcel located on Carriage Road in Providence Forge. They have submitted a large lot subdivision application to the planning department, which is in plan review. And under the current ordinance for AFD program, large lot subdivisions are not allowed under the AFD programs, hence the withdrawal application. The property is in rural lands. It is private well and septic. It's zoned A1. And under your consideration of the code 6244, we ask that you consider approving the withdrawal for this property. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. I do have a district map in the packet, as well as the withdrawal application and the subdivision application. This went before the AFD Advisory Committee, and they also recommended withdrawal from the property. And you can do that through PC Resolution 1120.
Any questions from the commissioners?
Ms. Wood, was there any time left on this AFD?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Any time left on this AFD?
Yes, the district goes until August 31st of 2024, so there will be associated rollback taxes that they're estimated to be approximately $5,000 to the Commissioner of Revenue. You're welcome.
Sherry, do we have any reports on how they managed their agriculture or forestry while they were under the this plan?
Yeah, for the purpose of this meeting, I did not bring that information with me, but they are required to report annually to the Commissioner of Revenue. Shannon McLaughlin is our deputy real estate person, and she gets annual reporting from them. Right now, they have 81 acres of tilled crop and about 10 acres of timber, which is located on the first page of the AFD withdrawal application.
Thank you.
And they are reporting that to the Commissioner every May.
Any additional questions from the commissioners?
I have a question about the proposed large lot subdivision. And I am an adjacent property owner to this.
Yeah.
The question I have is if this were approved, and how far down, if they were to sell these lots, and family members or whatever outside public, as they say in the application, could these lots then be subdivided again by the new owners? I mean, could this go on and on?
They could. Under A1, the lots have to be meet 1.5 acres in size to be zoned in A1. So if any future generations of the owners of these lots could subdivide them down smaller. Right now, if you're looking at the subdivision application, you see the families doing these in about 25-acre pieces right now. So, but yes, they could potentially be divided further. You're welcome.
Once again, any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. I will now open the public comment period for this case. Being there is nobody signed up, I will now close the public comment period for this public hearing and return the floor to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Commissioners, are there any other questions? If not, can I get a motion?
No. Sherry, so give me the steps. If we approve this, the supervisors then approve it, those parcels become available as large lot parcels. And at that time, each of those parcels need to come for building permits if they want to build residence on those. And then at that time, does that get approved for zoning residential? Or
What happens next is right now the subdivision application is currently in plan review with the county planner. The final plats for that subdivision plan review could not be signed by the subdivision agent until the board rules that this property is withdrawn. So the withdrawal has to occur first before the subdivision plat can be signed by the subdivision agent. And then then the owners can go and record their subdivision plat, get these properties deeded in each person's name, sell it. They would have to then come in, if they wanted to build on those lots, they would have to come and apply for permits
So,
to build.
basically, in my point of view, the only safeguard between these being developed and not being developed is the supervisor not approving this application.
Right, the board could rule not to develop this area
Because if
into
they-
more intensive
If they
use.
approve it, it's automatically can be
Yes,
a large lot subdivision.
yes, by right, yes, it could.
But then in 2024, they could withdraw it. Is that right?
No, the expiration date of the district doesn't end. The district, there's other parcels in the district that will continue until 2024. But with these people taking this one out, that they instantly pay rollback taxes for the last 5 years that they've been in the program, which they have, and then they come out. The rest of the parcels in the Big Swamp District remain until 2024. But if essentially this one ends the day that the board says they can be withdrawn.
But the fact of the matter, once 2024 hits, they don't have to renew, and they can do the same thing in 2024 regardless. Even if they're
The way the AFG code reads, they could reapply only, like if this 20-acre parcel, let's say Dennis Hockaday keeps a 20-acre parcel here, and he doesn't sell it to the public, and he's got 20 acres of viable forestry, then he could reapply to the AFD program.
But I guess my point would be,
But they're not-
the applicant can sell his property, large lots or otherwise.
He can sell it to
after
anybody once the board
2024.
approves the withdrawal, yes.
Right.
And they pay the
Or he
rollback
waits,
tax.
if they don't approve it, he has to wait till 2024, then he doesn't put it back.
No,
in.
he doesn't have to wait until 2024.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't subdivide property if it's in the AFT.
Right.
Sherry, the large lots, would they be considered, if you were to look on a plat, as a subdivision once they got subdivided?
Yes, it's considered a subdivision. You have different types of subdivisions. You have a family subdivision, you have a large lot subdivision, you have a major or minor. They're just different classifications of subdivisions based on, you have the cluster subdivisions. But this one meets the large lot criteria because of the acreages involved.
And the AFD committee recommended it.
Yes, in your packet, you'll have what looks like a staff report, but it's addressed to the Agricultural and Forestry District Committee. I use that as Mr. Chairman Moss's recommendation letter to you. And that is, let me see where it is in the packet. It's behind the subdivision application. And it's 3 pages. On the 3rd page, I have Mr. Moss sign and attest their motion. So they moved forward a favorable recommendation for the withdrawal on at their December 1st meeting. He signed it on December 9th. And that was a vote of 7-0. All 7 members present voted to withdraw, forward a recommendation for withdrawal.
Sherry, do you know how long this property's been in the Hockaday, the Sunshine Farm? Do you know how long they've had that?
If you look on the real estate data that's in the packet behind the withdrawal application, it's right after the map. This is the vision data that comes from the Commissioner of Revenue's office. It looks like it's got the address up top. You can look down towards the middle of the page for the ownership history, and you can see that the Hockadays have bought this property back in 2007. It has the deed book and page number. Well, they could have been the Glorious Hockaday. We had it before them.
That's Lewis?
It looks like, yeah, Lewis, yeah, G. Lewis. Yeah, so it was a family member. And then it went over to the trust in 2007. So it's been in the family, let's see, year built 1962, I don't know. That's kind of some vision data that I provide in the packet, so you have a little bit of history.
So I guess the point I'm making is the AFDs are designed to try to preserve the rural nature of the county. And
That is correct.
We kept this as a rural property for decades, and we all hate to see rural property lost. But
We do.
many of us live in houses or on lot that were built, on property that had formerly been rural at one point or another. So
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point. Our department has received several calls from, we've got some older generation farmers in New Kent County that have had their properties here for many, many years. You can get into where they're passing on, and the younger generation is not interested in farming or forestering the property, and they want to sell the land. So we're getting into that scenario. We have, we have an aged group of people here that own land in New Kent County, and the younger generations are just not interested in maintaining, unfortunately, farming and agriculture. And so we do get quite a bit of those, unfortunately.
Sherry, and if I could ask Rodney, how many residential building lots are there available still in the county?
700 and some, Kelly?
Excuse me?
The building lots that we still
Building
have?
lots that are available in the county, isn't it?
If you're
In the thousands?
Yeah.
It's like 7,500, I believe.
I'd say it's gone down a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're worried about 5.
We're building out
Okay.
farms and new
And they're
camps.
mostly in the developed neighborhoods.
Yeah.
and communities.
It's a lot.
The one thing about this, if I'm correct, they did not have to come with a reason to get out of the AFD. Am I right?
Well, the code reads good and reasonable cause, and if somebody wants to sell their land,
Yeah.
the
So,
board,
they
has the
actually-
right to say.
And I'm not,
Yeah.
as Gary mentioned, I'm not big
Yeah.
on ruining rural.
The
but-
code just
but
states
they
good,
could've-
reasonable cause.
They could have sold it or taken it out of the AFD, just saying that someday we may want to sell it. They've actually come and said, this is what we're going to do.
Mhm.
That's, I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because they know they have to pay the tax.
Yes,
That's good.
the applicants are aware of the rollback taxes.
Very good.
Any other questions or comments? Or a motion?
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll make a motion in order to address, protect, and promote public convenience, necessity, general welfare, and good zoning practices in the county. I move to adopt resolution PC-11-20 to forward application AFD-03-20 to the New Kent County Board of Supervisors with a favorable recommendation for withdrawal.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Kelly, will you poll the members?
Yes, ma'am. Recommendation of approval by Ms. Rose. I'll take the roll. Ms. Townsend? Mr. La Rochelle? Too many people have their mics on. No, maybe not.
Aye.
Oh, there you go. Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Dr. Schmidt?
Aye.
Ms. Rose?
Aye.
Mr. Moyer?
Aye.
And Ms. Pearson?
Aye. Thank you, Kelly. I'll hand it back over to you, Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our fourth public hearing tonight is for the consideration of AFD-04-20, deferral of the recreation of Diaskin Creek Agricultural Forestal District due to the board memorandum of R-23-20 with exception. Is that? Thank you.
Yes, Commissioners. AFD 04 is represented through your resolution PC 1220. we are asking that we defer the recreation of the Diaskin Creek Agricultural and Forestal District as a result of a board resolution that you were notified of back in April of this year before the COVID crisis. Resolution R2320 was due to the Virginia State of Emergency Declaration. We had this all lined up for renewal review for a meeting to go to the AFD back in May, and right before I was set to hold that meeting, then we had the resolution, which created some confusion on my part in the department. We had several discussions, both with administration and the county attorney, on how we should approach renewing the district in light of the moratorium, and mainly because there was one applicant, Mr. Edgar Walls, who had turned in a request to let his parcel expire, and that's the 4519. He currently has that property for sale listed with Mr. Paul Robinson, so we kind of had discussions back and forth. I said, well, how can I handle this if we're not going to review the district? Then how am I going to let him expire and let everybody else remain for another year until the moratorium's hopefully lifted? And so we came to the conclusion that we bring it before a public hearing. So we took that to the AFD Advisory Committee on December 1st, and they recommended deferring the review of the district for a year, which would essentially take the expiration date from August, this past August is when it has expired, August 31st of 2020, and just extend the renewal date a year until August 31st, 2021. And we recommend that we try to let Mr. Wall's parcel here expire upon approval by the board. So that's what we have before you tonight. I went ahead and copied you on all the renewal letters that I had received, just to let you know how many people were in the district. And then the one expiration, you can see Mr. Walls had asked that he let his parcel expire. Back in February is when he turned this into me. So that's what we're trying to consider tonight. The motion would be stated in your resolution. I'll answer any questions that you have. In the beginning, I had Mr. Vosnick wanted to expire, but then after he got notice of the moratorium, he changed his mind and wanted to stay in and prefers to let the district, roll over another year, and he'll stay in another year, and he'll reconsider his position on it if we extend the district to next year. So really the only one that wants to come out right now is Mr. Walls, and we ask that you consider letting him do that.
Any questions for Ms. Adams?
Sherry, I guess the only question I have is, since we're deferring these, the applications that were submitted for processing this past August, are they still in full force and effect? Or do they have to come back and reapply next year?
Well, that's a good question, and I think if we look, I had talked about this with the county attorney. I think what we can do is we can just hold these over a year and find out if the board is going to lift the moratorium, and then we can take those applications that we received in February of this year and just present those as a recreation for next year. I feel that would be the fair thing to do because all the applicants did what they were asked to be done, and it wasn't their fault that they got caught up in the COVID crisis. So we're trying to make this as least complicated as possible for the applicants and the district members.
That makes perfect sense.
Any additional questions? Thank you, Ms. Adams. I will now open the public hearing to receive citizen comment. And by the fourth shake of the head, there are none. I will now close the public hearing and return the floor to you, Ms. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Any further comments from the commissioners? If not,
Mr.
is there a
Chairman, I'll
motion?
entertain a motion.
Thank you, Patty.
In order to address and protect and promote public convenience, necessity, general welfare, and good zoning practices in the county, I move to adopt the resolution number PC 1220 to forward application AFD 0420 to the New Kent County Board of Supervisors with a favorable recommendation to defer the recreation of the Diaskin Creek AFD, to extend the expiration date of the district to August 31st, 2021, and to allow the tax map parcel 45-19 to expire immediately upon approval.
Phew. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Townsend. Kelly, can you pull the members?
All right. Long motion for approval. I'll take the roll. Mr. Moyer?
Aye.
Ms. Rose? Aye. Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. La Rochelle?
Aye.
Ms. Townsend?
Aye.
Dr. Schmidt?
Aye.
And Ms. Pearson?
Aye. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our last public hearing tonight is for consideration of AFD-05-20, deferral of the recreation of the York River Agricultural Forestry District due to the board memorandum R-23-20. Ms. Adams.
Yeah, so the AFD 0520 under your resolution PC 1320 is going to ask you to do the same thing, basically to defer the recreation of the York River District. That district was set to expire on August 31st, 2020 also, and got caught up in the COVID moratorium. All the members wish to renew, including Mr. Vosnick. Originally, like I said, he had wanted to let his expire this year, but with the moratorium, he sent a letter dated November 30th that he wanted to keep this one in the parcel that's in the York River District and keep this in another year as well, and that's tax map number 39-13. So we ask that we defer this as well. Without any exceptions, all the members would be deferred until next year, until August 31st, 2020. We just want to extend the expiration date on this and hopefully wait and see if the moratorium is going to be lifted.
Questions by the commission? Thank you, Ms. Adams. I will now open the public hearing. And my partner shakes his head again. I will now close the public hearing, seeing there's no one to speak, and return the floor to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Any questions or comments?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Joe.
I have a disclosure. While this is a formality, I have 2 brothers, 8 cousins that probably have at least a dozen parcels involved with this. So.
He's going to recuse himself.
I kind of figured that.
And I was formerly a member of the York River AFD as well until I had to get out last year.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Does he have to abstain? Oh, okay. Motion and vote. Sure.
Okay, let's do this again. In order to address, protect, and promote the public convenience, necessity, general welfare, and the good zoning practices in the county, I move to adopt the resolution number PC 1320 to forward application AFD 0520 to the New Kent County Board of Supervisors with a favorable recommendation to defer the recreation of the York River AFD and to extend the expiration dates of the district to August 31st, 2021.
Thank you, Ms. Townsend. Kelly, will you pull the members?
Okay. Motion for approval. I'll take the roll. Dr. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Abstain.
Ms. Rose?
Aye.
Mr. La Rochelle?
Aye.
Ms. Townsend?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Mr. Moyer?
Aye.
And Ms. Pearson?
Aye. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Is there any new business? Oh.
Oh, I lost my agenda.
Uh-oh. I think we all got renewed except for Pat.
Yeah, we.
Don't put that in.
I don't think Mr. Evelyn did that on purpose, but. Yeah, the board did set their January meeting date for January 12th, and I am going to assume that Mr. Evelyn will do his appointments at that meeting. But in the meantime, I did tell Ms. Townsend to get in touch with him. And I still can't find my agenda, so I'm going to go off the hip. Everyone else's terms did get reappointed, and you'll be getting your letter from Ms. Watkins. As far as the next month's meeting, I don't anticipate that the solar folks will be ready to go for a public hearing. They still have some homework to do. And plus the staff hasn't even gotten the paperwork yet, so we're typically going to go with at least 2 months to review that.
Kelly, is that the same one where they came and to the visitor center and they did a presentation?
Essentially, yes. It's the same property, the same company, but just different representatives. And I know that they did intend on doing another meeting like that, or at least reaching out to the adjacent property owners. So
I've gotten some letters from citizens about that company and stuff too. So, I mean, I guess it'll be well advertised, and if they do another presentation publicly.
Yeah, that's in
advertised as
District
well.
3, right?
Yeah.
'Cause it's a big district.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything that you get that you feel that needs to be shared with everybody, yeah, definitely. It's going to be a big one.
I think I got an email, so maybe. It wasn't positive.
We did get some feedback. This was months ago.
Yes, it's been months ago. I don't
Yeah.
even know, like, where the actual letter is right now, but
Right.
maybe you guys got a copy of it.
We did.
Could you share it with the whole?
Yeah, when I put the staff report and the packet
Yeah.
together, yeah,
That'd be
definitely.
great.
Because I've kept all of that
Yeah,
since
good.
it started. We do have another project in the works. I haven't gotten the paperwork for it. I was expecting it today. It's, if you know, on New Kent Highway, Mr. and Mrs. Williams, Joyce and Eugene Williams' property where that Blues Coffee House used to be. There's a couple interested in rehabbing that building and turning it into a cafe, but also living above on the second and third floors. That requires a use permit, so that project will be coming before you. I thought it was going to be in by today for the January meeting, but we'll see if it's going to make it in time, but more than likely we're looking at February. So as far as public hearings for January go, I don't think we're going to have any, so we may or may not have a meeting. If we do, we should set that meeting date for tonight. It's in the packet, so when you get around to doing that. Am I forgetting anything, Sherry? I don't think so. Okay. Once I find my agenda, I will jump back up if I had anything else. Is that it? No, it's not it either. I think that was it.
Next on the agenda is a chairman's report. I don't really have one, other than I hope everybody has a really happy holiday, and I sure as heck hope 2021 is a better year. Discussion on January meeting date would be January 19th would be the Tuesday after Martin Luther King Day. And then the same schedule would follow, I guess, the third Monday for next year. Is everybody good with that? Okay. Plan RVA report, Mr. Moyer.
Thank you. I got to be seated in front of Zoom, and we went to the first time I've been in a closed session on Zoom. I don't know if anybody's been involved in that yet.
but you are taken from this room to another room digitally, virtually. And only the people in the commission can be in that room. And as you see, everybody's there. The person that takes roll, all of a sudden that person disappears and is out of that room. And then when you click on one of the top things, you go back into the normal room. And it seemed like it was all legit. It worked out really well, and everybody understood it. It was about an employee situation, so that's why it went to a closed session. And so that was pretty interesting to experience that. The only real thing that went on during the meeting is there's a discussion about the amount of votes that each of the jurisdictions gets, and if they can be, if not all of their voting people have to be there to give the vote. If there's 5 representatives, say, from Henrico County, can one person be there and give all 5 votes? This has to be approved by every jurisdiction. And I got a feeling we might have been one of the jurisdictions that did not approve that due to the fact that we basically only have one elected official on the commission. That's Patricia. And so they have to go back and rework that to see how it is, because it would basically be Richmond, Henrico, and Chesterfield. Hanover would have a little bit more influence than us, but those 3 would basically run the Plan RVA, and that's not the reason for the Plan RVA. So that went down in flames, and they'll have to reintroduce that a different way. Am I correct with that, Rodney? Is that pretty much that? Yeah, okay. Just want to make sure. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Moyer. Any other commissioners have reports?
As chairman, I don't have a report, but again, I want to stress to our staff, to stress to the Board of Supervisors that we do have a dire situation at dispatch in 249. I'm just thinking right the moment, it's a good thing that the buses aren't running at this time, because that has eliminated a lot of the traffic, but for some reason there's still a lot of traffic there. And it's got to be either slowed down or regulated or put a roundabout or some way. We need to start addressing this before something worse to happen.
Thank you, Pat. Anyone else? No? Okay. Staff reports.
I didn't forget anything, so we're good. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Rodney, did you want to talk about that, the boundary line adjustment in the AFD? Thanks, Ray, you're right.
At the last Board of Supervisors meeting last Monday, the board adopted an initiating resolution to initiate an amendment to the subdivision ordinance, and that proposed language will come before you for public comment and a recommendation back to the board. What the proposed language does, it deals with agricultural and forestal districts and the ability to allow boundary line adjustments and lot consolidations to occur within properties that are within the AFD program, as long as the total of the properties are all within the AFD program. Currently, our subdivision ordinance states that you cannot do a subdivision if your property is in the AFD program. The state code defines boundary line adjustments and lot consolidations as a form of subdivision. It's called a re-subdivision. So therefore, we feel that boundary line adjustments and lot consolidations are currently not permitted. So that will be coming to you at your next meeting for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. All right, meeting schedule. If there is another meeting, in January. It will be January 19th at 6:30. That's a Tuesday after Martin Luther King Day. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay. Adjourned at 8:15.